Hi, my name is Sarah Shoup, and I'm the founder of UniversityParent. And I'm so excited today because we have Sue Hay, who is a college career coach with LaunchingU, here to talk to us a little bit about how parents can help support their students' job search. Sue, thanks so much for joining us.
So glad to be here, Sarah.
Can you tell us a little bit about your background and about LaunchingU?
Sure. I have had a very meandering career. I started out in social service. I ended up with a ridiculous career break in corporate America for a number of years in lead HR roles. And then when the company that I was the head of HR with moved to Florida, I needed to figure out what else I wanted to do. I'd gotten very good at recruiting. So I became an executive recruiter and eventually opened my own business. While I was doing that work and while the economy was sliding downhill, candidates that I was talking to and attempting to get interested in jobs, as we got to know one another, they talked about how worried they were about their own children and in that job market. And a couple of them just were like, would you talk to my son? He just doesn't seem to know what to do and he's not getting any traction in the market. And I did, and I fell in love with them and with the work that they had in front of them. At least at that point, very much informed by a bad market, but in general, how much is at stake for young people today? And, after doing it part-time for about a year, I created LaunchingU, and that was 2014, and I haven't looked back.
Great.
So at LaunchingU, we do career coaching with college students and new graduates. That is the only population we work with. We've spent a lot of time thinking about what matters, in a successful transition and how to coach and support students or young graduates in doing that. I live in rural New Hampshire, so most of my work is not face-to-face. It's over the phone or Skype or in Google Hangout like this. But I have no evidence, as far as I can tell, the work that I do like this is, remotely is just as effective as if I was sitting down in the living room with them.
Great. And so when you work with clients, can you tell us maybe a story about a client or how you typically engage with students?
I can. Perhaps what I could do is talk about just what I see as the 6 things that really, really matter in this transition, and weave some stories into that. And feel free to interrupt me if I'm going on too long. The very first thing that we work with students on is, what are they looking for? And some of them are completely clear. I'm going to be an accountant. I've always wanted to be an accountant. My uncle's an accountant. I've done internships in his shop. And so we don't spend a lot of time there. Maybe we're talking to them about, okay, are you looking for a public accounting firm, or are you looking to do accounting in a corporation? What kind of industries might be useful or of interest to you? But about half of the students that come to us are deer in the headlights. This is why they're talking to us. They don't know. And so we do some assessment and we do some deep listening, and we start to help them create hypotheses about what they might want to do. So that's where we start. The second thing, and just to tell a story about that, Michaela met me, and very outgoing personality, and she said, I'm going to be a physician's assistant. And okay, she was a bio major. That was looking like maybe it could be logical, until I asked her the question, okay, what do you know about being a physician's assistant? Not so much. She knew that she liked the person that had been her physician's assistant, when she went to the doctors. And when I did assessment with her, Michaela had a very, very, very strong need to know every day that she was making a difference. It needed to be specific and concrete and something that she could say, yep, I did. That was important today. When she job shadowed a physician's assistant, she came back kind of in tears saying, it was just a steady stream of strep throat. I'll never know, we prescribe penicillin, and no amount of reassurance that there was a number of different ways one could be a physician's assistant was comforting to her. And then we found occupational therapist. Okay, The stroke victim, walked 6 steps yesterday and 12 today. It was very measurable, very specific, and she was off to the races. And she's since gone back to graduate school and is a practicing occupational therapist. So there's a million ways to help them through that, gauntlet of figuring out what they want, but that's kind of where we start. The second thing is building a network. The truth is that over 70% of the people that are out there getting jobs or promotions got it because it was facilitated by somebody. Somebody told somebody that told somebody else, you should talk to John. I don't know if he's perfect for the job, but he's worth a conversation. And so we help these, young people understand what their network is and how to build it. And as you can probably imagine, some of them are great about that, and others would rather wash my kitchen floor than have to network. They're just very, very challenged by that. One young man told me, it's just not my vibe, Susan. Well, that is all. Thanks for sharing, Ben, but we're still going to do it. And they all do it. And that serves many masters, right? Because one, they can learn more about the areas they're interested in. That young man who wanted to be an accountant, he could talk to people that were in public accounting, and he could talk to people that were in companies. And again, some people need to spend a lot of time on that, and other people are already kind of natural at it. You've probably seen, and I know parents are really worried often when they see what passes for a resume, for their students. And if you go on LinkedIn, there's a lot of pages with frightened looking young adults and nothing else in their LinkedIn page. But we know that that's the first place, someone who's, going to do an informational interview, or someone who's, going to look at them as a candidate. It's the first place they're going to go. So we work on getting their resume and their LinkedIn page, really sharp, and teaching them how to write a cover letter. This is something that stops them in their tracks. It's like, I can't do this. And so we create a template with them and help them. The fourth thing is interviewing. Students, none of us are born good at this. There's a best practice out there of behavioral interviewing. We spend a lot of time here. There's almost nobody that comes to us that doesn't spend a lot of time here. And we teach them how to answer specific questions, building on their accomplishments and their interests and their experience, but also to tie it to a specific question that's being asked, for a specific role. And we do mock interviews with them. I feel like we send them out as little mini rock stars when it comes to interviewing. We get a lot of positive feedback from how prepared these young people are. They need a plan for how to attack the job market. Just last week, Alex, she wanted to live in a city that was a couple hours away. Everything's a couple hours away from where I live. And she had applied and done a phone interview with somebody, and they were kind of pushing her off, and it just didn't seem to be going anywhere. And she was going up for another interview, not with them, but with a different company. And I said, Alex, just call them. Tell them, I'm going to be in town. Is there anything we could do? I'd be happy to buy you a cup of coffee. They jumped at it, and they offered her a job before she left the office. It's just something she wouldn't have thought of, and that she felt a little bit like, oh, I don't know can I do that? Can I just call them? And it's like, of course you can. No one's going to die. Just give it a shot. See what happens. So those are the 5 things that we've traditionally worked on. We've just recently created a program that's really focused on juniors and sophomores, because we now know 4 or 5 years in here that a key differentiator is, do students have quality internships? Companies are looking for at least 1, sometimes 2 and 3. There's a lot that's unfair about that. There's a lot I don't like about it, but it tracks with our experience. Every client that we worked with last year that had a job before they graduated had done at least one and often two good internships. So that's the last thing. And we just got tired of reaching with seniors who were already past the point that they could do that. And so we couldn't help them with that. And it stalled. They all got jobs eventually, but it took longer. Mm-hmm. And frankly, they started a little lower on the totem pole than our clients that had done that.
Can you elaborate a little bit more about the difference between either a quality internship or a good internship experience, and how you encourage students to really sort through those?
Yeah, that's a great question. Because for something that is as important as internships are, there's so little, there's not a good roadmap for how you get them. They're different in every industry. Some are paid, some are not. Some people recruit, they're already done recruiting for next summer, some industries, and others won't start until April. But a good internship to me is not necessarily, oh, I'm at JP Morgan, or I'm in a, fill in the blank with a, Fortune 50 company or something like that. That's fine. But what makes a good internship is that you have an opportunity to put points on the board. You get to learn something while you're there. You get to grapple with something. There's a tangible result of your time there that ends up as a bullet on your resume. It ends up as an accomplishment story that you can tell in an interview. And it helps you decide, am I interested? One of the goals of an internship, right, is to get you to lean in more, because yes, this feels like a field that I'm interested in, or go, nope, not for me. My stepdaughter is fond of saying that she thought she wanted to be a lawyer until she internshiped in a law firm, and then she was like, okay, I need another option here. No disrespect for lawyers, but
yeah, no, I agree. I think having the actual experience of the job you're trying to get is so critical, not just to get hired, but to know if it's even worth trying to get hired for that role at all.
Right. Or even worse, you decide to go back to graduate school in that field, and you haven't had any experience, and you haven't had any internships. So yeah, mm-hmm. I'm a big fan. So that's to us what we're looking for. We work with our students very hard on how they're going to know, and the kinds of questions they need to ask, and how to hunt down people who have done internships there before. How to use sites like Glassdoor to try to get a picture of what was going on there. And then how to, there are some very good internships, but they're not in a company that has a well-established internship program necessarily. So you have to go in and structure that yourself, and make sure that you understand what the expectations are, and even try to frame some of those expectations. Mm-hmm. Does that make sense?
Definitely. Yeah. Thank you.
Okay. Yeah, you're so welcome.
And it sounds like for the most part, the parent is often the one that's calling and saying, can you please work
every single time, with no exception.
Well, that's good to know. Yeah. So when they do call you, what are they mostly worried about, or what are they grappling with that you really help walk them through?
That's another great question. So from my perspective, what every parent that reaches out to us wants is for their son or daughter's life to be working. They want to believe that they're going to be ready, and they're going to get a good job, and their career is going to start off on the right foot. That's just what what they want in terms of this question, right? In terms of careers. Our phone rings a couple on and off all year, but a couple of very critical points, one of which is coming up right now, right after Christmas break, because their student has been home for anywhere from 3 to 5 weeks, right? And they're with them a lot, and they know that child does not have a plan, and that they don't know what they're going to do, and they don't seem really engaged in it. They get a lot of things from, I can't possibly focus on that now. I'm too busy to, none of my friends know what they're doing. I'll figure this out after I graduate. But what we know is that if they don't at least have a strong plan and they aren't prepared when they graduate, it will take anywhere from 3 to 9 months to get that first professional position. So two things are going on there. The first thing is they realize that their student is not prepared. The second thing that has happened over those 3 to 5 weeks is that they've tried to talk to their student, and probably before this holiday, and they will again afterwards, and it's not going anywhere. Their eyes are rolling, tears can be being shed. Students are incredibly anxious on this vacation because they know Aunt Connie is waiting to say, Jason, you're graduating. What are you thinking about? What are you going to do? And they don't have an answer to that. Mm-hmm. So I would say that parents are most nervous about time is passing, their student does not feel prepared, and they can't engage them productively. It's not working.
Mm-hmm. Great. Okay. Thank you.
Yes.
So with that, can you talk a little bit about some of the things that parents can do? So I know a lot of times they'll try to talk to them, they'll try to be helpful, but what are some things that are actually productive for parents?
Right. And I don't on any level mean that parents shouldn't hang in there and shouldn't keep parenting their students. But it's important to remember this stage of life, right? I was not looking for a great deal of advice from my parents when I was these young people's age. It's kind of their job developmentally to be separating, and yet they do need guidance still, and they do need support. So in general, our perspective is that parents should keep on parenting with an understanding of the fact that they're not, this isn't the last big event that parents and students had, sort of systemically, was helping students get into colleges, right? Parents were much more involved, or much more, even a little bit in control of that process. And students still expected their parents to be saying, okay, did you do that essay? Their space has transpired. They're less looking for that from parents, and they are hyper alert to our hovering. They can smell it at 1,000 paces, and their defenses are up. So a few things that they absolutely can do around those 6 things that we work on. One is open their network to their students. We ask students to create a really big list of basically everyone they know that has a career. And then we help them put that in different buckets and think, who can they talk to and do informational interviews with? They don't have big networks. And so it's their parents' friends, their relatives, their parents' colleagues are, they occupy a big space on that list. Being willing, and we promise, we help them get their elevator pitch together, and they know they have to send a thank you note, and they're prepared. But in general, opening up your network is a really helpful thing to students. And it doesn't have to be like somebody who is exactly in the field, because they'll know somebody who knows somebody. So our clients and students in general should be out there talking to lots of people. So that's one of the most concrete things they could do. Another thing is, if your student will let you to proofread their material, there is never enough eyes on a resume, a cover letter, their LinkedIn profile. And it's something that, they're used to people helping them with. So students can be, they can be very open to that and wanting another pair of eyes on it. And I would say that this is kind of an oddball one, but take them clothing shopping. Get them clothes to wear to a job interview, because even though they feel very uncomfortable in those clothes, if they don't have those clothes, for example, they're not going to show up at a career fair at their school. they're going to be less comfortable going out on a informational interview. So get them out there. Make sure they remember that sneakers are probably not going to work with their blazer and their khakis. That they do need a belt. So, I mean, those are just some examples of very concrete and specific things they can do. But in general, if parents can get sort of on the same side of the table with their student and problem solve. We get a lot of parents talking to us with a fair amount of angst about, she wants to move across the country. She's not ready for that. And, a subtext of that is also, I'm not ready for that. I'm not ready for her to move. Denver, they're all going to Denver right now. Mm-hmm. We're in Massachusetts. We're East Coast people, it can make parents very, very anxious. And, and they might not like the reasons, a girlfriend is there, friends are there, it's good skiing. But if you can step out of the idea that you're approving or disapproving of that move and start thinking, well, okay, what do we know about the job market in Denver? How could you look that up? You're interested in engineering. What are go find some engineering firms that look of interest to you. What kind of budget would you need? Let's assume it's going to take you 4 months to find a real job. What does an apartment cost? Are you flying or are you driving? Do you have a car? I mean, is this a city in which you don't need a car, or do you need a car? Just getting them thinking with them, but you will anticipate questions that they will not anticipate. So helping them, think about that. It's far more productive when parents can be in that kind of conversation. Just as another example, in the article we wrote for you guys, one of the things that we asked parents to really think about not doing is trying to select their students' majors for them, or pushing them really hard away from a particular major. And that's for a couple of reasons. First of all, we absolutely believe any major can lead to a good job. There's different types of work. Some are easier than others, but we have had students majoring in archaeology, museum studies, English, psych, and they've all gotten good jobs. But the other reason is that, if you're not majoring in something that interests you, it can suck the joy out of it. So rather than trying to say, in your heart, you may know or believe that your student isn't the next Meryl Streep, isn't necessarily going to have a career in acting. But how about getting them out there, talking to people who have been and are actresses? What is that world like? What kinds of careers do people go into if after 3 years they say, I can't make a living doing this? Are there other kinds of careers in the arts that they might be interested in? What kind of minor might you need? If you're going to go into running a theater somewhere, maybe a business minor isn't a bad idea. So again, it's that sort of helping them think through versus trying to be an actual coach. They can resist. Much of what I say to my clients, their parents have already tried to say. It is not so much that, we do know how to do this, but it's really that we're not their parents. Mm-hmm. That gets them so they can sort of take their ear, plugs out and hear us. That makes a difference. Mm-hmm. That was a long answer.
No, that's good. Great. Okay, wonderful. So one of the things I'm curious about, we talked a little bit earlier about how you work with students at different points kind of in their college career.
Yeah.
Can you talk a little bit about how you've set that up and how that works based on if you're a sophomore or you're a junior or a senior?
Sure. We started, and I would say that still the majority of our clients are seniors in college. We love working with our seniors, and certainly that the fact that they're on the last lap in the track creates motivation, for them. But when we get them, there's already been lost opportunities, things they could have taken advantage of when they were freshmen, sophomore, or juniors. Internships is just one example of that. When they come to us with without an internship, or with ones where they just have nothing to say. I bought coffee for people. So we decided, knowing how important they were, that we were going to kind of run back downstream, to those sophomore and junior years, and really work with them to do that. And what's useful about that is an internship is sort of like the minor leagues, getting an internship for getting a job, right? I mean, they have to know how to present themselves. They have to do an interview. They do need a resume. All those things are necessary there. So by the time they're ready to go, actually out into the market, they've already built some of those skills. So there's less we have to do with them when they're seniors, if we've already helped them, in the internship category. And then we've had so many students, and from the best schools in the country to somebody who's coming out of community college, who they're strong, capable people. They had a lost semester, usually in their freshman year. Took that, what would have been a completely respectable 3.45 GPA, and brought it crashing down to like just over 3.0. And though in 5 years after graduation, no one ever wants to know what your GPA is. In fact, if it's on your resume, take it off, because it's embarrassing. But it does matter in your first job. And so when we listened to enough of those stories, we realized that the students didn't successfully attach in their freshman year, or if it was kind of weak and they couldn't problem solve their way through obstacles, they kind of just withdrew. And so we created a freshman program, and it's really only 7 sessions. I mean, we can do more if the student needs more, but it's really it's like we're handing them off to resources on the campus. And, in that first semester, they will all have had some sort of problem that they need help with. And we really work more on the academic side than the social side. Although the question is the same, right? It's, well, okay, who can help you with that? Who can help you if you have to get, you cannot live with this person anymore as your roommate, or you forgot to buy your textbooks for 3 weeks, or, you didn't know that the test was this. How can you, it's just problem solving, but it's helping them build some muscle with that so it doesn't get out of control. So it kind of evolved from, the seniors were coming towards us. They knew they needed help, they needed work. And as we worked with them, we saw the missed opportunities earlier on. And we said, we can run interference with that stuff, with the internships and with freshman attachment, for lack of a better word.
So if you start working with someone, just as an example, in their sophomore or junior year, do you work with them all the way through graduation?
It varies. What we typically do is help them get that internship. And then, then we do some work with, all right, how do you position that on your resume, and how do you maintain the contact with those people? You need to invite them to be a friend with you, or a connection with you on LinkedIn. And once you've done with that, tell everybody how great time it was. And we might not talk with them again until, maybe this time in their senior year, where they will check in with us about what they're looking for. But we're less skill building with them at that stage, because they've really got a foundation of it. And it's more probably focused on supporting them as they go through, the job hunt process. So, every student is different in the amount of support they need and want. But I would say that for certain, we do less skill building work with seniors when we've already helped them get an internship as a sophomore or junior.
Mm-hmm. Okay, great. So just before we, wrap up, is there anything else you'd like to share about really what parents should do to help their son or daughter? And maybe if not, tell us a little bit about how that they can best get in contact with you if they'd like to learn more about what you offer.
Sure. I think the concrete things that we talked about, and again, every student is different, right? Some students may absolutely let their parents, be part of their thinking about where they want to go and what their career focus is going to be. Sometimes parents are like, I can't do this work with him, and so they're very relieved when we take that over because they don't feel like they have the expertise, but their student is absolutely asking for help. So I don't mean to say that parents can't, your student, your child, but just be alert to the fact that it's time for them to be building some of these skills too, and that they might not see you as the exact right person. But you can think with them about who else could be. Every client we have works with career services on their campus, in addition to working with us. And, all career service organizations aren't created equally. Some are great, some are much less than great. But parents can encourage students to work with their careers. You don't have to work with me on it, but I want to know what your plan is. I want to know what you're going to do and how you're going to get yourself ready if you're a senior, or what you're doing to have an internship. So you can have expectations about their output and the results that parents should have expectations about. It's just when you recognize that your student is floundering and they're not letting you help them, or they're asking for a kind of help that you can't give, we would love to be considered one of the resources that you would consider talking to and that you would consider using. We're not the only ones. Sometimes it's a trusted aunt or uncle, who just happens to be in the field that the student is interested in, but absolutely, we would love to talk to you about your student and where you see them, and if there's a way that we can be helpful to you. And it is the parents who call, and I see that as our first job. What is the presenting problem from the parents' point of view? And sometimes parents call us and we don't work with their kids for 6 months or a year, or we don't ever work with their student. But I think they all find that initial call very, very helpful, and we work hard. It's not just us saying, here's what we can do for your student. We do talk about that, but it's also trying to solve or be useful to them in what's on their mind when they pick up the phone. So we'd love to talk with them.
Great. And can you share your website address and the phone number that's best to reach you?
Sure. Our website is the word launching and the letter U. So LAUNCHING and just the letter U, launchingu.com. And you can also reach me at sue@launchingu.com, or my phone number is 603-398-7278. And we would very much like to hear from anybody who is listening to this. And Sarah, the other thing is I very much admire the work you guys do here. And I can tell from being on your feed that your parents are very motivated and they're very engaged. And so we would be happy. The first phone call is totally free, always. But we would be happy to offer anybody that calls up and says that they heard about us from UniversityParent a 20% off any package that they decide to buy. So yeah, I just love to have an opportunity to partner with you guys on that, and awesome. your parents.
Thank you very much.
You are so welcome.
Thanks so much for joining us today and sharing these very helpful tips. And Sue will also be available in our Facebook group shortly to answer questions that parents have over chat. So Sue, thanks again. We really appreciate it.
You are so welcome. And I so would look forward to talking to the parents.
Awesome. Thank you. We'll
Thank
talk
you.
soon.